Doyen stood at the observation window of the Mars station, watching the red dust swirl across the landscape below. He had been stationed here for 8 months, and Earth was just a blue dot in the distance now. He missed home. He missed Seoul, the crowded streets, the smell of street food. His mother's voice on the video calls every Sunday. The alarm shattered his thoughts. Red lights flooded the corridor as Doyun ran toward the command center. Other officers were already there, their faces pale as they stared at the screens. Commander Hayes was shouting orders, but his voice sounded distant, unreal. "What's happening?" Doyen asked. "Ships," Hayes said. His hand shook as he pointed at the display. Unknown ships. Hundreds of them. They just appeared near Earth. Doyen's chest tightened. The screen showed massive vessels, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They hung in space around Earth like dark clouds before a storm. "Are they responding to our signals?" someone asked. Hayes shook his head. "They're not responding to anything. They're just..." The feed from Earth cut to static. Then another feed died. Then another. "Get me a visual from the lunar base," Hayes ordered. When the image appeared, Doyen felt his knees go weak. Bright lances of light were falling from the alien ships, striking Earth's surface. Where they hit, massive explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Cities vanished in seconds, replaced by craters of molten glass and fire. "Seoul," Doyen whispered. "My family's in Seoul." He watched helplessly as the city he grew up in disappeared under a beam of white light. The feed showed the destruction spreading across the planet. New York, Mumbai, Lagos, São Paulo. One by one, Earth's great cities turned to ash, the communication channels filled with screams and emergency broadcasts. Then slowly they went silent. 48 hours later, the Mars station received a message. It was not from Earth. It was from the aliens. The voice that spoke was cold and mechanical. "Humans of this system, your homeworld has been cleansed. Your military has been destroyed. You will surrender all territories and technology. Resistance means extinction. You have 12 hours to comply." Commander Hayes looked at Doyen and the other officers. "What do we do?" Doyen thought of his mother, his sister, his friends. Were they dead? Were they trapped under burning buildings? He felt rage building inside him, hot and sharp. "We fight," he said quietly. Back on Earth, Hannah Park crawled through the rubble of what used to be a research facility. The underground complex had saved her life when the bombardment hit. Now she was alone in the dark, surrounded by broken concrete and twisted metal. Her ears rang from the explosions. Dust filled her lungs with every breath. She found a flashlight that still worked and used it to navigate through the destroyed hallways. The facility had been secret, built deep under the Australian outback. The government had assigned her here to work on experimental weapons. Now that work might be humanity's only hope. Hannah reached the secure vault where the prototypes were stored. The door was jammed, but she forced it open. Inside, her research was intact. Designs for new weapons, new defenses, things that might hurt the aliens if she could ever build them. She gathered everything she could carry and began the long climb to the surface. When Hannah finally emerged, she saw a world transformed into hell. The sky was dark with smoke. Fires burned on every horizon. In the distance, massive alien ships floated above the ground, releasing smaller craft that hunted for survivors. She ran. In the ruins of Seoul, Mira Choi held her daughter close as they hid in a subway tunnel. The bombing had come without warning. One moment she was walking home from work. The next, the sky was falling. Her daughter, only 6 years old, was crying quietly. Mira pressed a hand over the girl's mouth, gentle but firm. Above them, she could hear the alien machines moving through the streets. They made a sound like grinding metal, searching for anyone still alive. Other survivors huddled in the darkness around them. Maybe 30 people, maybe less. An old man, a teenage boy with a broken arm, a woman clutching a photograph of her family. "We need to move deeper," someone whispered. "Get further underground," Mira nodded. She lifted her daughter and followed the others down into the black tunnels beneath the destroyed city. Junho Lee watched from the military bunker as the reports came in. He was a commander, but he commanded nothing now. His forces were gone. His country was gone. The world as he knew it had ended in 2 days, but the bunker still had power. It still had communications. And scattered across the globe, other bunkers were responding, underground bases that had survived the bombardment, submarine crews that had been deep underwater, space stations and colony outposts that were too far away to hit. Humanity was broken but not dead. Junho began making calls. Every surviving officer, every scientist who answered, every politician still breathing. They needed to organize. They needed a plan. "This is Commander Junho Lee of the Earth Defense Forces," he said into the microphone. "To all survivors, to all who can hear this message, the enemy thinks we are finished. They think we will surrender. They are wrong." His voice was steady even though his hands shook. "We will not surrender. We will not give up. We will hide. We will learn. We will adapt. And we will fight back." The responses came slowly at first, then faster. Voices from deep ocean facilities, from mountain bunkers, from the moon and Mars and the asteroid colonies, all of them saying the same thing. "We're still here. What are your orders?" On Mars, Doyen received Commander Lee's message. He looked at Hayes and the other officers. "They want us to surrender our base," Hayes said. "The aliens will be here in days." "Then we have days to prepare," Doyen replied. He pulled up tactical displays studying the base's defenses. They were meant to protect against accidents and solar radiation, not alien warships. But they were better than nothing. "We're going to fight them?" an officer asked. "We can't win." "Maybe not," Doyen said. "But we can make them hurt. We can make them pay for every human life they took." He thought of Sol burning, his mother's smile gone forever, his sister's laugh silenced. "They fired the first shot," Doyen said quietly. "But we're going to make damn sure we fire the last one." Around him, the other officers nodded. They began preparing for battle. Below Earth's scorched surface, in hidden bunkers and dark tunnels, humanity made the same choice. They would not go quietly into extinction. They would not surrender to the aliens who thought them weak. The Vral Empire had conquered 100 worlds. They had crushed countless civilizations. They believed humans would be no different. They were wrong. The war had only just begun. 6 months had passed since the sky burned. Hannah worked by the light of a single electric lamp in the underground facility. Her hands were covered in grease and her eyes were red from lack of sleep. Around her, other scientists worked on broken pieces of alien technology. They had found the wreckage 3 months ago. A Vral scout ship had crashed in the desert, damaged by a lucky missile strike from a dying Earth defense battery. The aliens inside were dead, but their equipment was intact. "Look at this," Hannah said to the engineer beside her. She pointed at a circular device taken from the ship's hull. "This is their shield generator. See how it pulses?" The engineer, a young man named Taman, leaned closer. "It's following a pattern." "Exactly," Hannah said. Her exhaustion disappeared as excitement filled her voice. "Every 30 seconds, the frequency shifts. It's predictable. If we can time our weapons to fire during the shift, we might be able to penetrate their shields." Taman's eyes widened. "We could hurt them. We could kill them," Hannah corrected. She thought of the research facility in Australia, buried under rubble. She thought of her colleagues who had died in the bombardment. "We need to test this. Build a prototype weapon." She sent her findings to Commander Lee's bunker. Within hours, she received orders to begin development immediately. Resources would be sent from other surviving facilities. Whatever she needed, she would get. For the first time since Earth fell, Hannah allowed herself to hope. On Mars, Doyen led a team of fighters to the surface. They wore stolen Frail environment suits modified to fit human bodies. The red planet's thin atmosphere offered no protection, but it also meant the Frail had fewer places to hide their supply convoys. "Target spotted," whispered Yejin, his second in command. She pointed at a dust cloud in the distance. 3 transport vehicles heading for their main base. Doyen checked his weapon. It was a captured Frail rifle, heavy and awkward in his hands. But it worked, and that was all that mattered. "Remember the plan," he said into his radio. "Hit fast, take what we can, and get out before reinforcements arrive." His team spread out across the rocks, taking position. They had done this a dozen times before. Strike and run, hurt the enemy and disappear. It was not glorious, but it kept the Frail off balance. The transports rolled past. Doyen counted to 3, then gave the signal. Explosions erupted beneath the vehicles. The lead transport flipped over, its hull cracking open. The others skidded to a stop as human fighters opened fire from the rocks. Frail soldiers emerged from the transports, returning fire with their energy weapons. Blue bolts of light cut through the Martian dust. One of Doyen's fighters screamed and fell. "Keep moving," Doyen shouted. He fired his rifle, watching a Frail soldier collapse. Don't let them pin you down. The fight lasted 3 minutes. When it was over, all 3 transports were destroyed and the Vral soldiers were dead. Doyen's team had lost 2 fighters. They searched the wreckage quickly, taking ammunition, food supplies, and equipment. Every piece of technology they captured went back to human engineers who were learning how to build their own versions. "Sir, we need to go," Yejin said. "I'm detecting incoming aircraft." Doyen took one last look at the burning transports. "Move out." They disappeared into the Martian wastelands, ghosts in stolen armor. In Seoul's underground tunnels, Mira had become someone new. The frightened woman who hid with her daughter was gone. In her place was a fighter. Her daughter was safe now, hidden in a deeper bunker with other children and elderly survivors. Mira had made sure of that before she joined the resistance. Now she led a team of 20 fighters, men and women who refused to let the aliens take their world without a fight. "The patrol will come through here in 10 minutes, said Hyun, a former police officer who now served as Mira's scout. He pointed at a map of the subway system, same route they always use. Mira studied the map. The Vral patrols were predictable. They followed patterns, confident that the broken humans posed no real threat. That confidence was their weakness. "We'll hit them at the junction," Mira decided. "Plant explosives on both sides. When they're in the kill zone, we detonate." Her team moved into position, working quickly in the darkness. They had learned to be silent, to move without light, to become invisible in their own destroyed city. The Vral patrol arrived exactly on schedule. 10 soldiers in their heavy armor, scanning the tunnels with their weapons ready. They were careful, but not careful enough. Mira pressed the detonator. The explosion ripped through the tunnel, collapsing the ceiling onto the patrol. Dust and debris filled the air. When it cleared, the Vral soldiers were buried under tons of concrete. "Let's move," Mira said, "before they send more." They vanished into the maze of tunnels, leaving only death behind them. In the command bunker, Junho stood before a screen showing a map of the world. Red dots marked Vral positions. Blue dots marked human resistance cells. There were far more red than blue, but the blue dots were growing. Every week, more survivors emerged from hiding. More fighters joined the resistance. More scientists shared their discoveries. Humanity was learning to fight back. "Sir, we're receiving reports from all sectors," said an officer. "Successful raids in Australia, South America, and East Asia. The Mars team destroyed another supply convoy. Dr. Park's weapon prototype is ready for testing." Junho nodded slowly. They were hurting the Vral, but not enough. Not yet. The aliens still controlled the skies, still occupied the major population centers, still had the power to wipe out humanity whenever they chose. "What about casualties?" Hunyo asked. The officer hesitated. 300 fighters killed this week. 50 civilians executed in reprisal attacks. Junho closed his eyes. Every victory cost lives. Every raid meant the Vral would punish human survivors. But what choice did they have? Surrender meant slavery or death. Fighting meant death too, but at least it was death on their terms. "Send orders to all resistance cells," Junho said. "We're going to coordinate a major operation. Dr. Park's weapon needs to be tested in real combat. If it works, we might finally have a way to hurt their command ship." The officer looked shocked. "The command ship? Sir, that's in orbit. We don't have any spacecraft left." "We have the captured Vral shuttle on the moon base," Junho replied. "And we have volunteers willing to fly it." He pulled up tactical data, studying the enemy positions. The Vral command ship hung above Earth like a dark moon, directing the occupation forces below. If they could destroy it, even damage it, the message would be clear. Humanity could strike back. Humanity could reach them. "This is going to cost us," Junho said quietly. "Many will die." "Many are already dying," the officer replied. "At least this way, their deaths will mean something." Junho sent out the orders. Operation Retribution would launch in 1 month. Every resistance cell would attack simultaneously, drawing Vral forces away from key positions. And while the aliens were distracted, a small team would fly the captured shuttle to the command ship and deliver Dr. Park's new weapon directly to their hull. It was desperate. It was dangerous. It was likely to fail, but it was better than waiting to die. Hana received the mission parameters and felt her stomach twist with fear. Her weapon, her design, would be used in the most important operation since the war began. If it failed, if her calculations were wrong, hundreds of fighters would die for nothing. She worked through the night, checking and rechecking every detail. The weapon was simple in concept. A missile that would fire during the shield's frequency shift, penetrating the barrier and detonating inside. But simple did not mean easy. The timing had to be perfect. The payload had to be powerful enough to damage the ship's critical systems. "It will work," Taman said, watching her work. "You've tested it 100 times." "In simulations," Hana replied. "This will be real." "If I'm wrong, then we try again," Taman interrupted. "We keep trying until we get it right. That's what humans do. We don't give up." Hana looked at him and saw the same determination she felt, the same rage, the same refusal to accept defeat. "You're right," she said. "We don't give up." She finished the weapon and sent it to the moon base. The countdown to Operation Retribution began. Across the solar system, in hidden bunkers and dark tunnels, on Mars and the moon and the asteroids, humans prepared for battle. They cleaned their weapons. They said goodbye to loved ones. They made peace with the possibility of death. The Frail had conquered 100 worlds, but they had never fought an enemy like humanity. An enemy that refused to stay down. An enemy that learned from every defeat. An enemy that got stronger with every loss. The aliens were about to learn what happens when you back humans into a corner. They were about to discover that the species they thought weak was actually the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. The war was about to change. The night before Operation Retribution, Doyen could not sleep. He sat in the briefing room on the moon base, staring at the tactical display. Tomorrow, he would lead 20 volunteers on a suicide mission to destroy the Vral command ship. The odds of survival were nearly zero. He did not care about the odds anymore. Yejin found him there, still studying the plans. "You should rest," she said. "Can't," Doyen replied. "I keep thinking about all the ways this could go wrong." "Then think about the ways it could go right." Yejin sat beside him. "We damage their command ship. We show them that humans can reach them anywhere. We give hope to every survivor hiding in the dark." Doyen looked at her. Yejin had been with him since Mars, through every raid and every close call. She was his best pilot, his most trusted friend. Tomorrow she would be flying the captured Frail shuttle with him. "Are you scared?" he asked. "Terrified," she admitted. "But I'm more angry than scared. That helps?" Doyen smiled despite himself. "Yeah, it does." Across Earth, resistance cells prepared for their part in the operation. Mira gathered her fighters in the Sol tunnels, checking weapons and explosives. They would attack a Vral supply depot on the surface, drawing enemy forces away from the capital. "This is bigger than our usual raids," Hyon said quietly. "A lot of us won't make it back." Mira knew he was right. The plan required them to hold the depot for at least 30 minutes, giving the orbital strike team time to reach the command ship. 30 minutes was a lifetime when fighting the Vral. "Anyone who wants to leave can leave now," Mira said, looking at her team. "No shame in it. You've all done enough." Nobody moved. They stood together in the darkness, human beings who had lost everything but refused to lose themselves. "Then let's make them pay," Mira said. In Australia, Hana watched technicians load her weapon onto the captured shuttle. She had done everything she could. The calculations were perfect. The timing was right. But doubt still gnawed at her. Commander Lee stood beside her, his face lined with exhaustion. He had not slept properly in months. None of them had. "Dr. Park," he said, "I want you to know that whatever happens tomorrow, you've given us a chance. Before your weapon, we were just dying slowly. Now we can fight back. That matters." "It only matters if we win," Hana replied. "No," Lee said firmly. "It matters because we tried. Because we refuse to give up. The Vral think we're primitive animals. Tomorrow we show them they're wrong." The operation began at dawn. Across 3 continents, resistance cells launched simultaneous attacks. In Seoul, Mira's team stormed the surface, throwing explosives at Vral guards and racing for the supply depot. In South America, fighters ambushed a patrol convoy. In Australia, a human commando team infiltrated an alien communication center. The Vral responded with overwhelming force, exactly as planned. They sent aircraft and ground troops to crush the uprisings, pulling soldiers away from their normal positions. On the moon, Doyen and his team boarded the captured shuttle. The vessel still smelled like the aliens who had flown it. Strange symbols covered the controls, but human engineers had spent months learning how to operate it. "All systems ready," Yejin said from the pilot seat. "We have a launch window in 60 seconds. Doyen looked at his team. 20 volunteers, all of them knowing they were probably going to die. Some were soldiers like him. Others were engineers, scientists, even a teacher who had lost his entire family in the bombardment. They wore captured Viral pressure suits and carried weapons built from alien technology. "Whatever happens up there," Doyen said, "I'm proud to serve with you all." The shuttle launched, accelerating toward Earth orbit. Below them, the planet was still scarred from the bombardment, its cities dark and its oceans choked with ash. Above them, the Vral command ship waited like a metal mountain in the void. In Seoul, Mira's team had taken the supply depot, but the Vral were closing in. Energy bolts cut through the air as alien soldiers advanced from multiple directions. The humans fired back from behind barricades, making every shot count. "They're bringing in gunships," someone shouted. Mira saw the aircraft approaching, their weapons charging. She keyed her radio. "All teams, focus fire on the western approach. We need to hold them for 20 more minutes." 20 minutes might as well have been 20 hours, but they would try. The shuttle approached the command ship and alarms began blaring. Frail fighters launched from the vessel, racing to intercept the human craft. "Evasive maneuvers," Doyun shouted. Yejin threw the shuttle into a wild spin, dodging enemy fire by meters. Energy bolts flashed past the windows. One of the Vral fighters exploded as a lucky shot from the shuttle's guns found its mark. "I'm reading massive power spikes from the command ship," called out Jiwon, their engineer. "They're charging their main weapons." "How long until we're in range?" Doyen asked. 90 seconds. 90 seconds to cross the distance between life and death. 90 seconds while the Vral tried to kill them. 90 seconds to deliver Dr. Park's weapon to the enemy's heart. The shuttle shook as enemy fire struck its shields. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. One engine was damaged, life support was failing. "Keep going," Doyun commanded. On Earth, Mira watched her fighters fall one by one. Hyun was hit, then the young woman who had been a nurse before the war, then others whose names she had learned around campfires in the tunnels. They fought and died, buying time with their lives. 10 minutes, she shouted. "Hold for 10 more minutes." But the Vral were everywhere now. Their soldiers advanced behind shield walls, protected from human weapons. Gunships circled overhead, firing down into the depot. It was hopeless. Mira thought of her daughter safe in the deep bunker. She thought of the city she loved reduced to rubble. She thought of the humans in orbit risking everything to strike back at the enemy. "Fall back to secondary positions," she ordered. "We're not done yet." The shuttle reached firing range. Warning alarms screamed as the Vral command ship's weapons locked onto them. In seconds, they would be vaporized. "Fire the weapon," Doyen shouted. Jiwon launched Dr. Park's missile. It streaked, away from the shuttle, heading straight for the massive enemy vessel. The Vral shield shimmered, trying to block it. Hana's calculations had been perfect. The missile fired during the exact moment when the shield frequency shifted. It passed through the barrier like it did not exist and struck the command ship's hull. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. A section of the alien vessel tore open, venting atmosphere and debris into space. Secondary explosions rippled through the ship as critical systems failed. "Direct hit," Jiwon screamed with joy. But there was no time to celebrate. The Vral fighters were still coming and the damaged shuttle could not outrun them. "Brace for impact," Yejin shouted. Energy bolts slammed into the shuttle, the cabin filled with smoke and sparks. Doyen felt the vessel spinning out of control, falling toward Earth's atmosphere. "Abandon ship," he ordered, but he knew it was too late. They were going to crash. Through the smoke and flames, he saw the command ship limping away, trailing debris and plasma. They had heard it. They had actually heard it. Doyen smiled as the shuttle began to burn. On Earth, the Vral forces suddenly stopped advancing. Their communications were in chaos, orders conflicted. The command ship, damaged and retreating, could no longer coordinate the occupation forces effectively. Mira seized the moment. Push! Forward! Hit them now! Her surviving fighters charged, catching the confused aliens by surprise. Within minutes, the Frail soldiers were retreating, falling back to their bases in disorder. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Human resistance cells, sensing weakness, pressed their attacks. The Frail, without clear orders from above, began to withdraw. In the command bunker, Junho watched the reports flood in. The orbital strike had succeeded. The command ship was damaged and fleeing the solar system. Vral forces on Earth were in disarray. For the first time in a year, the tide of war had turned. But the cost had been terrible. Hundreds of resistance fighters were dead. The orbital strike team was missing, presumed destroyed. Mira's unit had taken 70% casualties. Cities had burned again in the fighting. Send a message to all surviving units, Junho said quietly. Victory. The enemy is retreating. Humanity endures. 3 days later, a rescue team found the shuttle wreckage in the Pacific Ocean. Doyun was barely alive, his body broken, but his spirit unbroken. Ye-jin and 3 others had also survived the crash. When he woke in a medical facility, the first thing Doyun asked was, "Did it work?" "It worked," the doctor told him. "You're a hero. You all are." But Doyun did not feel like a hero. He felt like a survivor. And he knew the war was not over. The Vrel Empire had suffered its first defeat in centuries. In their distant homeworld, the news spread shock and fury. Humanity, the primitive species they had thought to crush in days, had struck back, had hurt them, had driven them away. The Empire's response was swift and merciless. A second fleet was dispatched to Earth, 3 times larger than the first. This time, there would be no mistakes. This time, humanity would be exterminated completely. But something had changed. Humans had learned they could fight. They had learned they could win. And most importantly, they had learned they would never surrender. The message went out across all resistance channels. The Vral were coming back. But this time, humanity would be ready. This time and 3 years had passed since the first invasion. The young man named Seojin did not remember much about the world before the war. He had been 12 when the sky burned. Now at 15 he was a soldier. He crouched behind rubble in what used to be Tokyo, his rifle trained on the street ahead. Beside him, Yuna waited with her own weapon. She was 16, thin and scarred, with eyes that looked much older than her face. They had both grown up in the tunnels and bunkers, learning to fight before they learned to drive. "Movement," Yuna whispered. 200 meters, 3 targets. Seojin looked through his scope and saw the Vral patrol. 3 soldiers in their dark armor, scanning the ruins with their weapons ready. They were careful now. The aliens had learned that every street could be a trap. Every building could hide human fighters. "Wait for them to reach the intersection," Seojin said. His voice was steady, calm. He had done this 100 times. Yuna takes left, I take center, Minsu takes right. Behind them, Minsu gave a thumbs up. He was only 14 but already had 5 confirmed kills. In the new world, children became soldiers or they became victims. There was no in-between. The patrol moved forward, confident in their armor and weapons. They did not know that underground human engineers had been working for 3 years to understand their technology. They did not know that the weapons aimed at them could now punch through their shields. Seojin counted down silently. 3, 2, 1. 3 shots rang out simultaneously. 3 Vral soldiers fell dead before they could react. The young fighters were already moving, disappearing into the ruins before reinforcements could arrive. This was the new war. Not grand battles, but 1,000 small cuts. Humanity had learned that they could not win in open combat, but they could bleed the Vral slowly, kill them 1 patrol at a time, make every street a battlefield. On Mars, Admiral Doyen Kim stood on the bridge of the Defiance, humanity's first true warship. It was built from salvaged Vral technology and human innovation, a patchwork vessel held together with determination and hope. His body still ached from injuries that never fully healed, but his mind was sharper than ever. "Admiral, we have confirmation," said Commander Ye-jin. She had been promoted after the orbital strike. her skill as a pilot too valuable to waste. The Vral supply base in the asteroid belt is exactly where our intelligence said it would be. Doyen studied the tactical display. The Vral Second Fleet had arrived a year ago, larger and more aggressive than the first. But this time humanity was not helpless. They had ships now. Not many, not as powerful as the enemies, but enough to fight back. All ships, battle positions, Doyen ordered. We hit them hard and fast. Destroy their supplies and get out before their warships arrive. The Defiance and 5 other human vessels accelerated toward the asteroid base. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but they had surprise, and they had something else the Vral did not expect. Humans who had spent 3 years learning to think like them, fight like them, beat them at their own game. The battle was brief and brutal. Human ships swooped in, missiles and energy weapons tearing through the base's defenses. Explosions bloomed in the void as supply depots and fuel tanks erupted. The Vral tried to respond, but by the time their fighters launched, the human fleet was already retreating. All ships report successful strikes, Yejin said with satisfaction. 0 casualties. Doyun allowed himself a small smile. 3 years ago, such a victory would have been impossible. Now it was routine. Humanity was learning, adapting, evolving into something the Vrail had never faced before. In her laboratory beneath the Australian wasteland, Hannah Park examined her latest creation. She called them Prometheus rounds, ammunition that burned hot enough to melt Vrail armor. The temperature was so extreme that the bullets could punch through their shields even without timing the frequency shift. But with each weapon she created, Hannah felt a piece of her humanity slip away. She had designed missiles that could level cities, viruses that could shut down Vral computer systems, biological agents that targeted alien physiology. She had become very good at making tools of death. Taman found her staring at the Prometheus round, her expression troubled. Having doubts? He asked gently. I keep thinking about what I've become, Hannah said. Before the war I wanted to help people. Now I just design better ways to kill. You are helping people, Taman insisted. Every weapon you create saves human lives. The Vral started this war. We're just trying to survive it. I know, Hannah whispered. But sometimes I look at what I've made and I wonder if the person who built these things is still human. Taman took her hand. You're human. You're just a human who refuses to let her species die. There's nothing wrong with that. Hannah wanted to believe him. But late at night, when she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of all the aliens who had died because of her inventions. She told herself they were the enemy. She told herself it was necessary. But the faces remained. On Earth, General Mira Choi commanded the defense of the Korean sector. She was no longer the frightened civilian hiding in tunnels. She was hard now, scarred by battle, respected by soldiers who would follow her into hell. But the cost of command weighed on her constantly. Every order she gave meant someone might die. Every battle won came with a list of casualties. She had seen so much death that she sometimes felt numb to it. Her daughter, now 9 years old, was growing up in the deep bunkers with other children. They had schools down there, teachers trying to preserve knowledge while the world burned above. But the children knew nothing but war. They learned to recognize the sound of different weapons before they learned to read. They practiced hiding from aliens before they learned to play. What kind of world were they building for them? Mira wondered. What kind of future waited for a generation that had never known peace? General, we have a situation. Her aide interrupted her thoughts. The Vrail are executing prisoners. Mira's blood went cold. Where? Seoul, the old city center. They're broadcasting it. Mira pulled up the video feed and felt rage burn through her numbness. Frail soldiers had gathered 50 human prisoners in the ruins. One by one, they were executing them while broadcasting the message to all human channels. Surrender, or share their fate. Assemble Strike Team 7, Mira ordered. Her voice was ice. We're getting our people out. General, it's a trap, her aide protested. They want us to attack. I know it's a trap, Mira replied. We're going anyway. Ready the teams. The rescue mission was exactly as dangerous as she expected. Vral soldiers waited in ambush, their weapons trained on the approaches. But Mira had learned from 3 years of war. She did not attack directly. Instead, her teams infiltrated through the tunnels, coming up behind the aliens, catching them by surprise. The firefight was intense. Humans fell, but so did Vral soldiers. In the chaos, Mira reached the prisoners and started cutting them free. "Can you run?" she asked an old man. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you." "Thank you." They evacuated through the tunnels, leaving the Vral to fight shadows in the ruins above. By the time the aliens realized what happened, the humans were gone. Back in the bunker, Mira counted the cost. 8 soldiers dead, 15 wounded, but 50 prisoners saved. Was it worth it? She did not know anymore. She just knew she could not stop fighting. In the command center, Junho Lee looked older than his years. The war had aged all of them, but leadership had taken an especially heavy toll on him. He coordinated resistance efforts across the entire planet, making decisions that cost lives every single day. "Sir, intelligence reports that the Vral are developing biological weapons," an officer reported. "They plan to release them in major population centers." Junho felt tired. So very tired. "What are our options?" "Dr. Park believes she can develop a counter-agent, but we need time. We need to evacuate the targeted cities." "How many people are we talking about?" 2 million, possibly more. Junho looked at the map showing evacuation routes. It would take months to move that many people. The Vral would not give them months. They would have to fight for every day, every hour. "Begin evacuations immediately," he ordered. "And tell Dr. Park to work as fast as she can. We'll buy her the time she needs." The war ground on. Every day brought new battles, new casualties, new horrors. But it also brought new victories. Human fighters learned to shoot straighter. Human engineers built better weapons. Human strategists developed tactics the Vral could not predict. Seojin and Yuna fought in Tokyo, then Manila, then Shanghai. They saw their friends die and learned to keep fighting anyway. They became legends among the resistance. The young fighters who never missed, who could slip through any defense, who refused to give up. Doyen's fleet grew slowly, adding captured ships and new construction from hidden shipyards. They raided supply lines, destroyed alien outposts, made the Vral afraid to travel alone. The admiral who had watched Earth burn from Mars was now the terror of the asteroid belt. Hana's weapons became more sophisticated, more deadly. The Prometheus rounds were distributed to every resistance cell. The Vral learned to fear the humans with their burning bullets, the species that turned science into vengeance. Mira held the Korean sector against countless attacks. She became known as the general who never retreats, the woman who would fight to her last breath to protect her people. But the human fleet gathered at the edge of the solar system. 50 ships all humanity could spare without leaving Earth defenseless. They were a strange collection of vessels, captured Vral ships, retrofitted human transports, and new warships built in hidden asteroid shipyards. Each one carried soldiers' weapons and the hope of an entire species. Admiral Doyen Kim stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking at the fleet he would lead to the Vral homeworld. He was older now, gray showing in his hair, his body marked by old wounds, but his eyes were still sharp, still filled with the fire that had kept him fighting for 5 years. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander Yejin said. She had stayed with him through every battle, her loyalty never wavering. "Then let's go," Doyen said quietly. "Let's finish this." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving the solar system behind. It would take weeks to reach Frail space, weeks to cross the vast emptiness between stars, weeks to prepare for what they all knew was a one-way trip. On Earth, General Mira Choi watched the fleet disappear from her screens. Then she turned to face her own responsibilities. The Vral garrison still controlled large parts of the planet. If the fleet failed, if they never came back, Earth would have to hold alone. Her daughter came to see her before she left for the command center. 9 years old, thin from years of rationed food, but alive. "Still alive, Mom, are we going to win?" the girl asked. Mira knelt down, taking her daughter's hands. "I don't know, but I know we're going to fight. And as long as we keep fighting, there's hope." She hugged her daughter tight, memorizing the feeling. Then she went to war. In the fleet, Seojun and Yuna prepared for battle. They were part of the strike force, the soldiers who would land on the Vral homeworld if they got that far. At 17 and 18 years old, they were veterans of countless battles. Or was all they knew? "You scared?" Seojun asked as they checked their weapons. "Always," Yuna replied, "but I'm more excited than scared. We're actually going to their world. We're going to make them feel what we felt." Seojun understood. This was not just about winning. This was about making the Vral understand, making them feel the fear that humans had lived with for 5 years, making them regret they ever came to Earth. The fleet encountered its first resistance at the outer edges of Frail space. Enemy scouts detected them, and within hours, Frail warships were converging on their position. "Engage all targets," Doyen ordered. "Fight through them. Don't stop for anything." The battle was brutal. Human ships were outnumbered, but they fought with a desperation the Frail could not match. Every human knew this was their only chance. There would be no retreat, no second attempt. They would reach the homeworld or die trying. Ships exploded on both sides. The Defiant shook as enemy fire struck its shields. But the human fleet pushed forward, leaving wreckage in their wake. "We're breaking through," Yejin shouted. "The homeworld is within range." On Earth, the Frail garrison launched a massive offensive. They had detected the human fleet heading for their homeworld and responded with fury. Ground forces attacked resistance positions across the globe. The skies filled with alien warships. Mira stood in the ruins of Seoul, directing the defense. Her soldiers fought from every building, every tunnel, every piece of rubble. They gave ground slowly, making the Frail pay for every meter. "General, we're being overwhelmed on the Eastern Front," someone shouted. "Reinforce them with the reserves," Mira ordered. "We hold this city. We hold until the fleet completes its mission." She thought of Doyen, somewhere in distant space fighting his own battle. She thought of all the soldiers who had died over 5 years of war. She thought of her daughter hiding in the deep bunkers waiting to see if humanity would survive. "Hold the line," she screamed at her troops. "Hold it for Earth!" The human fleet entered the Frail home system. The planet hung before them, a green and blue world not unlike Earth. Beautiful, peaceful. Home to billions of aliens who had sent fleets to exterminate humanity. Doyen looked at it and felt nothing but cold. "Determination. Prepare the strike teams," he ordered, "and open all communication channels. I want every Frail to hear this." He stood before the camera. This human admiral who had fought for 5 years, who had lost his family and his world but never lost hope. "People of the Frail Empire," he said, his voice broadcast across their planet. 5 years ago you attacked our world. You burned our cities. You killed billions of humans. You did this because you thought we were weak. You thought we would surrender or die." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You were wrong. We did not surrender. We did not die. We learned. We adapted. We fought back. And now we are here at your homeworld just as you came to ours." On the Frail planet below, billions watched the broadcast. They saw the human fleet hanging in their sky, weapons armed, ready to fire. They felt, for the first time in their history, what it meant to be helpless before a superior force. "We could destroy you," Doyen continued. "We have the weapons. Dr. Hannah Park, one of our greatest scientists, has created devices that could turn your planet into ash, just as you did to ours. We could kill your children. We could burn your cities. We could make you feel everything you made us feel." The Frail Empress, watching from her palace, felt her blood run cold. She had sent the fleets to Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, she had awakened something terrible. "But we won't," Doyen said. His voice was tired now, heavy with the weight of 5 years of death. "Because we are not you. We are human. And humans know that revenge is easy. Peace is hard. Building is harder than destroying." On Earth, Mira listened to his words as she fought. Around her, human soldiers pushed back against the Frail ground forces. The aliens were hesitating now, uncertain, receiving confused orders from their homeworld. "This is our message to you," Doyen said. "This war can end now, right now. You can call back your forces. You can leave our world. You can sign a peace treaty that guarantees our sovereignty, or this war can continue. And if it continues, we will keep fighting. We will never stop. We will hunt you across the galaxy if we have to. We will make every day of your existence a nightmare." He leaned forward, staring into the camera. "Every ship you send to Earth will be destroyed. Every soldier you send will never come home. Your empire will bleed for years, decades, centuries, because humans don't give up. We don't surrender. We don't forget. And we never ever stop fighting for our survival." Silence fell across the Frail homeworld. The Empress stood in her council chamber, surrounded by advisors who had no advice to give. They had never faced an enemy like this before. An enemy that could have destroyed them but chose to offer peace instead. An enemy that was somehow more terrifying because of that choice. A single Frail warship moved to fire on the human fleet. It charged its weapons, preparing to strike. Admiral Doyen Kim saw it. He gave the order calmly, without hesitation. Destroy that ship, the Defiance fired. The Vral warship exploded in a ball of fire and debris. The last shot of the war echoed across space. Then silence. The Empress made her decision. She opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "Admiral Kim," she said, her voice shaking. "We accept your terms. The war is over." On Earth, the Vral forces received the order to cease fire. They withdrew to their ships, leaving the planet they had occupied for 5 years. Human soldiers watched them go, hardly daring to believe it was real. Mira stood in the ruins of Sol, covered in dust and blood, and heard the announcement. The war was over. They had won. Humanity had survived. She fell to her knees and cried. The human fleet stayed in Vral space for a month, ensuring the peace treaty was honored. Then they began the long journey home. They had left with 50 ships. They returned with 32. Thousands had died in the final battle, but Earth was free. Dr. Hannah Park stood in her laboratory when the fleet came back. She looked at all the weapons she had created, the tools of death that had helped humanity survive. Then she began dismantling them one by one. The war was over. It was time to build instead of destroy. Admiral Doyen Kim returned to Earth a hero, but he did not feel like a hero. He felt like a survivor. He had lost so much, his family, his friends, 5 years of his life spent fighting. But humanity had endured. That was what mattered. General Mira Choi was reunited with her daughter. She held the girl close, feeling the weight of command finally lift from her shoulders. The war was over. She could be a mother again instead of a soldier. Seojun and Yuna returned to Earth, no longer children, no longer even young. They had spent their teenage years fighting a war that adults had started. Now they would have to learn how to live in peace. 20 years passed. Earth rebuilt. The cities rose again, different from before, but still beautiful. The scars remained, but life found a way to continue. Humans and Vral established trade, cultural exchanges, wary peace that slowly grew into something like understanding. Commander Yuna Song, now a diplomat, walked through New Seoul. The city had been rebuilt on the ashes of the old one. It was different now, with architecture that mixed human and alien designs. Children played in the streets, both human and Vral, a sight that would have been impossible 20 years ago. She visited the memorial wall, where billions of names were carved in stone. All the humans who had died in the war. Her fingers traced over,